It's the Dep Lewis Show. The Dep Lewis Show. It's the Dep Lewis Show. It's the Dep Lewis Show. The Dep Lewis Show. It's the Dep Lewis Show. It's the Dep Lewis Show. The Dep Lewis Show. It's the Dep Lewis Show.
Welcome to the Dep Lewis Show, episode 194. This is your host, Dep Lewis, and today is Saturday, August 22nd, 2026. A great day for a video game, podcast, and more. So I hope you're doing great out there in the world, wherever and whenever you're listening to this. Thank you for being here. The first order of business is to ask you to follow Dep Lewis Show everywhere. Full episodes of Dep Lewis Show available anywhere you can find a podcast. So find the best place to subscribe and listen weekly. Places like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, YouTube, Amazon Music, and more. If you would like to support the show even further than just listening, patreon.com/Dep Lewis Show is available if you like subscribe monthly. I am currently at 1 out of 100 spots taken for the ground floor tier, which is $1 a month and will never change in price and will always include the same content as any of the higher tiers. Also, Venmo at Dep Lewis Show is available any day, anytime, for any amount if you would like to support the show. Today's show will have 3 sections as always. The first section, I'll tell you about what video games I've been playing since I've last talked to you on this microphone. The mid section, which is not mid in quality, it's the middle of the show. That's where I tell you about everything going on around the video game world that you need to know. In the third and final section, the Miscellaneous Talk section, is a break from all the video game talking. And I normally like to get into the worldwide world of sports and tell you what's going on with all my favorite teams. And my favorite team has already taken a loss today, so I'll have to tell you about that in the final section. And a couple of my favorite teams' losses resulted in me having to wear an opposing team's hat this week. So some pretty embarrassing stuff on the sports front going on for me that I'll have to tell you about in the final section of the show. But I'm also recording this on a Saturday, as you may have realized, so I'm a day early than my normal schedule. But I believe I mentioned friend in real life and friend of the show, King Tut, before, and he is having a party tomorrow, so I'm going to be spending most of my day traveling and going to that and, most likely having a whole lot of fun, which is the plan. So getting an early show today, but I feel like I had everything ready to go. I was doing a little bit of playing a new game this morning that I picked up this week, and I think I'm going to end up getting hooked on that game. We're going to see, so I have a little bit to tell you about that, but let's get it started. So the new game that I've been referencing is Pokemon Pokopia, and I finally picked this up in the past week. This game released on March 5th, exclusive for Nintendo Switch 2. It is now the second best selling Nintendo Switch 2 game of all time, is behind Mario Kart World. I think Mario Kart World's at it might be 18 million, it might be 13 million, but Pokemon Pokopia has hit the 4 million mark, I believe, is the threshold, and it's the second best-selling one so far, so pretty impressive there. I was thinking, earlier in the year I was playing the Pokemon Leaf Green port to Switch, and then that kind of went into me playing Pokemon Sword, and then that kind of went into me playing Forza Horizon 6. And I kind of think I placed a bow upon Forza Horizon 6, the wonderful, amazing game of the year so far for me for the 2026, and I think I'm maybe 85% of the way through on all the objectives on the map. I know there's new objectives being added over time, but for the most part, all I have left is kind of the drifting stuff that I'm not good at. I've tried to bash my head against it a little bit, maybe not too much, but I kind of just for now, I've played enough of that and I'm moving on. So I moved on. And this is really just from today, playing this morning, was Pokemon Pokopia. I got my file started. In this game, you play as Ditto and build a new life with Pokemon from the ground up. With the help of your Pokemon friends, rebuild a desolate world into a charming utopia, one step at a time. So this early on is already demonstrating a whole lot of things I'm going to like about it. I'm coming in as a big Animal Crossing fan from New Horizons. That's one of my most played video games of all time. And I had a stint with that game earlier in the year, playing a second file, but kind of fell off when I've pretty much already done, that game, I've probably done 95% of everything that you can do, really. There was some new content added to it, and I was trying to run a second file, but it was going to take a while to get back. But Animal Crossing is one of my favorite franchises. And then recently I've had a resurgence of liking Pokemon a whole lot. So this is a pretty good blend of two things I like, and it's starting off really, really fun. So you get to design your character in this game. You're Ditto. You are in you show up to kind of a mysterious world. Not really going to get into spoilers, even though everyone probably knows already, but you're playing as Ditto. It's the only human-looking character in the world so far. I don't know really how the story goes, but Ditto misses his owner, so that is why you create the human form that Ditto's going to act as, and he seems to have some mysterious powers. You meet Tangrowth at the beginning, and you meet the 3 Kanto starters. You meet Squirtle first, then you meet Bulbasaur, and then you meet Charmander. So Bulbasaur is one of my favorite Pokemon for sure, especially after playing Pokemon Leaf Green. So, I'm going to have to make sure that I keep Bulbasaur happy. But the Pokemon certainly look really cute. The Pokedex that you get is really nice. It has, good information about your Pokemon, about their likes, about some of their background stuff. So some of that's pretty fun. And it's fun, like living in the world with the Pokemon, and that's kind of the main objective. And then I'm already enjoying the Animal Crossing-ness or Stardew Valley-ness of, picking up sticks, picking berries, watering grass, giving items to characters. You're having to eat a carrot to gain some PP points back or whatever it may be. And it's just starting off great. The music's really amazing. The graphics look charming. The first time you walk out into the open world area, it looks pretty massive and huge. You're only kind of quarantined to the first little area early on to learn the game, but you can see there's going to be a lot of building mechanics and different things you can do and ways you can customize. And hopefully I'm going to get the Glaceon sooner than later. That's really my main point in Pokemon Pokopia, is to build Glaceon, an extremely cool house. I don't know if Boltund is in this game. I can't imagine so, but Boltund is, my second favorite Pokemon. But I'm sure I'll be able to find Lapras. I know I will, because there is a profile icon for Lapras or Ditto as Lapras, and then Bulbasaur is my other favorite one. So those are my top 4 currently going for Pokemon. But the start of this game is really amazing. I've heard that some people compare the whole game to being a tutorial, or talking about how long it can go to get started. But, in the first hour or so, everything seems pretty charming. The story setup is really, really good. It's kind of better than expected. It's somewhat simple, but I think just maybe a little bit of the writing has already been really good with the characters and Tangrowth in particular early on. So, a really, really great start to this. I played some in handheld. I played some on TV. Seems like it's going to be a perfect handheld game to play, and I think that is where I'm going to, try to be spending my time. I'm kind of moving on from Forza Horizon 6, and I think it's going over to Pokemon Pokopia, which I have started playing in the last week, and I've started playing actually today, talking in real time. So on the Pokemon Pokopia train, we're going to see if it can climb the mountain and take down Forza Horizon 6 for Game of the Year. There's about a quarter of the year left here. We're running out of time for the game of the year choices. I'm not the quickest video game player in the world, so there's only going to be a couple shots at it. But, a couple of the new games I've been playing have been Splatoon Raiders and Pokemon Pokopia. So I'll talk more about Splatoon Raiders in just a minute, but let's talk about some more Pokemon stuff. So I've also played a little bit more of Pokemon Brilliant Diamond in the last week. I took down the Oreburgh City Gym, which is the first gym in the game, and I got the badge. So I went down there and talked to Gym Leader Rourke, Rock-type gym leader. He was down in the mines. I had to go find him and fetch him. I had to bring him back up to the gym, and then I, took care of business over there and got my first badge. So I'm going to be able to go back. I think you have to do some backtracking after you get the first badge, or it lets you access an area you weren't able to go to, kind of like these games like to do. But I've been having fun with that game as well. I've been on a real big Pokemon video game kick this year, and, trying to make some progress on Brilliant Diamond. I'm sure I'll make a little bit of progress here and there amongst playing Pokopia, because they are a different style of game, but, probably going to be continuing to hear more and more about Pokemon as this show, or as the course of the year goes along for sure. So, Chimchar is my main Pokemon in Brilliant Diamond. Chimchar is now Monferno, and I don't really know when Infernape is coming. I guess that's the third evolution, and I could be wrong on that, so my apologies to Mr. Chimchar and Mr. Monferno if I'm wrong there, but having a whole lot of fun with the Pokemon. They're extremely cool. They're extremely cute. Ditto's a really cool character, and having fun with Pokemon. So I mentioned Splatoon Raiders. That is another new game I've gotten sort of recently. I've been enjoying everything I've been doing in this game, but I've just been playing a little bit slowly. I did beat a few levels this week. I finally hit a portion in the game where I died on a level and had to replay it. And I think I got it on the second turn pretty easily. I was able to go equip some upgrades or change my loadout a bit, and that really did help. So it seems like you might need to make sure you're working on your upgrades before you're moving on when you have those options, because I think that's what I was missing, and I'm sure that's what the game was trying to teach me. I really like this so far. I like the collectibles a whole lot. I think the Splatoon in a single player sense is something new to me. I've just been a multiplayer player. I think I've said before, this kind of gives me some Mario Odyssey vibes. It kind of gives me some Donkey Kong Bonanza vibes, and I think that's a really cool mixture, especially with Splatoon, who has really awesome characters like Fry and Shiver and Big Man and Small Fry and just the whole crew. Really, really cool characters, cool style, cool music. and seeing it in a context of other games I think is really, really fun. So Splatoon Raiders has been a good start too. I think it's going to take a little bit of a backseat to Pokemon Pokopia because I think that's the game I'm most excited to play right now. All right, another little update. This is not a game I've played in the past week, but I kind of wish I was over the weekend, and that's Splatoon 3. And that is because there is a Splatfest going on. So this one really did sneak up on me. I normally like to keep you aware out there when the Splatfest are going on, but this one just slipped by me. But it's going on currently if you're listening in real time. So luckily, if you're listening on this Saturday, you got the rest of the day today and tomorrow to play some Splatoon 3. So, maybe if you're listening to this, pause the podcast and go boot up some Splatoon 3 and pick which team you want to join. And the question is, which would you reserve for a day? So as with the Splatfest, there's always 3 choices. You pick your side, you battle all weekend, and you see which team comes out victorious at the end. And this one is, which would you reserve for a day? A palace, a theme park, or a beach? And there is certainly one that is not my choice, and that is theme park. I'm a little bit of a scaredy cat. Maybe some apologies out there to the cats out there being labeled as scared, but I'm not the biggest fan of heights or going quickly or, being upside down or whatever. So theme park is not just normally my thing. And I do think it would be cool to see a palace and reserve one for the day. I guess you could reserve it and walk around and see it, but I think I'm going to pick Team Beach. You can sit on the beach, you can have some fun, you can eat something good out there, you can work on your tan, you can get in the water. A lot of fun, relaxing stuff to be done on the beach. And I think that's the team I would choose if I was repping the Splatfest over the weekend, which I could see myself getting some games in. I booted it up this morning just to see if that was really the case, and it was. And I didn't actually play any because I started some Pokemon Pokopia, but there's a good chance I could play a few matches later in the day, so I will let you know about that. But that has been everything I've been playing in the last week. So the main thing to report there is I've started Pokemon Pokopia, and I think that is going to be I'm going to attempt to make that the lead dog for my video game playing and really try to see what I like about it, and I have a feeling I'm going to get hooked on it, so it's starting off really, really good. I've also been playing some Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, which I've been, playing on and off ever since I finished Pokemon Sword. I've kind of been trying to figure out my next Pokemon game and the mainline series. And then I mentioned playing a little bit of Splatoon Raiders and talked about the currently going on Splatfest in Splatoon 3 right now. This is the year of the front log on the Dep Lewis Show, so that's my theme for the year. I've been focusing on new releases, so the two I'm looking most forward to, I don't know how much I'm going to play this first one on release day, but these are the ones I'm clocking the most for the end of the year. Marvel's Wolverine on September 15th, Grand Theft Auto 6 on November 19th, and kind of the main reason for the theme this year was to not worry about my backlog, not worry about games that I've purchased and maybe haven't played, or if there's a new game coming out, maybe don't worry about going back to the beginning of the series if I don't want to. So it's been a little bit of a pressure relief with the year of the front log, and I think it's been doing a pretty good job at that. I've been having a fun year playing some Pokemon games and doing some racing, and that has really taken up the majority of it so far. So I'm trying to figure out some new stuff to play for the last little half of the year here, or last third of the year, whatever it may be. And I think there's some really good options. There's a bunch of good games coming out that are already been released this year. There's a bunch of good games coming out in September in particular. And then there's one of the biggest video game releases of all time coming out on November 19th, which is Grand Theft Auto 6. So really, really cool. And that is everything about the year of the front log. And that's all the games I've been playing in the past week. So that's going to wrap up this first section of the show. I'm going to play some lovely break music and come back for the mid section where I tell you about everything going on around the video game world you need to know. Welcome back to the midsection of Dep Lewis Show, episode 194. This is where I tell you about everything going on around the video game world that you need to know. And the first one is a release that is coming out in the upcoming week. So this is a preparation note here. Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 2 is coming out next week on August 27th. This one is coming out multi-platform to PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, Switch 2, which I love to see, and Steam. This game's going to be $49.99 USDs, and this is introducing the second installment of the collection featuring the first ever port of one of my favorite games of all time, Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriot, and also Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. So if you don't know anything about Metal Gear 4, the back of the box talk is it's set 5 years after the Big Shell incident, in an era where war has become a business due to the rise of PMCs, private military contractors. To stop Liquid Ocelot's uprising, the legendary hero Solid Snake faces his final battle. So this is a game that I'm proud that I've completed because it's a long game. It's a very cutscene heavy game. It's a very stealth oriented game, but I certainly did not play this game in a stealth manner. But I had a lot of fun playing this game, and have some. This is one of my fondest video game memories for sure. This was, I think, the first game I played on my PlayStation 3. I bought a PlayStation 3. I didn't even have a correct TV to plug it into. I had to go buy a really small flat screen TV with an HDMI cord, and that was really my first introduction of having a PlayStation console around release. So I just have some great memories of this game, playing it for a lot of hours, over just over the course of a day, and kind of like a little bit of a new thing for me with this game a little bit back in the day. So it's really cool to see this is coming to current gen consoles, having other ways to play it besides the PS3. I'm certain I will be trying this out at some point in the future. This is one if I didn't have anything else I wanted to play, I would probably certainly pick up and want to see how it is. I think I've heard it's running pretty well on the Switch too, which is very, very nice to hear. But if you have any inclination or desire to play a Metal Gear game, I'd say, I would recommend for a whole lot. It's just extremely cool. It's extremely unique and different, and I would just say definitely give it a chance. And these collections, or the first collection, definitely goes on sale a whole lot. So it's going to be crazy to see in the future when this game's on sale for like $19.99 or something. Maybe that'll be the kind of time I try to pick it up. But this is something that I definitely want to play at some point, and you will be able to play it next week, which is Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 2. All right, a game that's been available on Switch 1. This game came out, I don't know, maybe a couple years ago, but now the news here is there's a new Nintendo Switch 2 edition, and that game is 1000 Times Resist, or 1000 Time Resist. This Nintendo Switch 2 version released last week on August 20th. This game's currently on sale right now, 40% off digitally, for $11.99 USD. So, I've heard really good things. This game was in, I'm going to say Game of the Year. It was in Game of the Year discussions, but like maybe not in contention, but this was a very popular game that a lot of people like. So for $11.99, you can play the Nintendo Switch 2 edition right now. And it looks like the upgrade pack from Switch 1 to Switch 2 is free, so that's very nice, and not always the case. You're getting enhanced frame rate and resolution. 1000 Times Resist is a thrilling sci-fi adventure. The year is unknown, and a disease spread by an alien invasion keeps you underground. You are Watcher. You dutifully fulfill your purpose in serving the All-Mother until the day you discover a shocking secret that changes everything. The developer of this game is Sunset Visitor. That's all lowercase. That was something I thought was different or unique I noticed there. And the publisher is called Fellow Traveler, with 2 L's in there. So, the developer and the publisher are both trying to be unique there with their names, but not familiar with them, but I've heard that they developed and published a great game. So go check out 1000 Times Resist, and especially, a very good, not a full price game. So that's always a nice option out there, which there's more and more of those happening over time, which is very, very nice. And the, ever price increase, the ever increasing price of video games and consoles and things like that. There are still some, affordable, reasonable options out here, and this is one of them. All right. So that's kind of everything in the past week I wanted to tell you about, or, upcoming week that's coming out. Another bit of news here on the Duskbloods. That's a game that's releasing in 2026. They are saying there's no really anything further besides just having that, and it's exclusive to Nintendo Switch 2. That's the most interesting thing here. The Duskbloods global network test, that's the news for today, is taking place currently from August 21st to 24th. So if you're listening to this podcast in real time, and I'm recording a day early today, you still have some time on the Duskbloods global networks test. So if you want to go check that out, I don't know if you had to pre-register what you have to do to get in there, but it's certainly going on right now. So if that is, especially if you have people that like to play games together, this might be a good one to go try out, because this is a Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive, and just a really, really big release that a lot of people are waiting on. In the Duskbloods, the moon tears will flow for one and one alone. Become a bloodsworn of dusk, a supernatural being imbued with special abilities by the power of blood, and leap into online battles of up to 8 players. The Bloodsworn have been summoned to do battle at the dusk of humanity, form transient alliances and bitter rivalries alike as you take on enemies and compete for the right to first blood. So basically, news there. Go check out the Duskbloods Global Network test going on from August 21st through the 24th. All right, one of the bigger Nintendo releases for the rest of the year is Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. This one is about a little bit less than a month away, but I've been seeing a lot of content about this. A lot of people have been talking about this. They've been showing more of the game and the characters, and I think everything is looking and sounding really, really cool. It looks like it's going to be a little bit more of a return to the Three Houses side of Fire Emblem instead of the Engage side of things. I think that's a welcome change back to me, because Three Houses is one of my favorite games of all time. But Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave is releasing on September 17th for Switch 2. This is an expensive one. It's $69.99 USDs digitally, and it's $79.99 USDs physically. So very, very expensive there. Determine the fate of the world. Travel through time to gather allies and defeat the demon god Balor. Test your tactical prowess in battle as you guide 4 heroes on their interwoven journeys from past to present. Together you'll save the future from ruin or fail trying. So the characters, if you have, like the platinum points that you can get on Nintendo Switch when you go like look at the store or whatever, you can spend those on different icons. And they have currently, or they had the other day, characters from Fire Emblem Three Houses. And I pretty much got every one of those because I was like, oh my God, these characters are so memorable, down to all the different teams, all the different schools. Team Edelgard was my favorite one, by a mile. But, I liked a lot of the other characters in that game. And it's cool to have all those icons in my inventory. I think Nintendo does a good job with those of allowing you to get some more than the basic ones, and you can just spend your like in-game currency or whatever it is to get them, and I think it's a fun thing. I'm usually grabbing all the Pokemon, I'm usually grabbing all the Splatoon characters, and I grabbed all the one from Three Houses the other day because I was, going down memory lane looking at some of those characters. But everything I've been hearing from Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave sounds really great. I don't know if they've completely figured out like the monastery stuff or I guess it was like a floating city in Engage. I don't really remember. It was kind of a little bit more bare bones than that. But, the battling in Fire Emblem is elite tier. It's so much fun. The strategy's fun. The abilities are fun. The way the characters talk and interact in the world is just really, really fun. Grid-based strategy combat. And then they usually do a pretty good job with the characters too. And having your open world relationships you can build and just different things you're able to do is like a little bit of a reset. I think that was some of the weaker points in Engage, but it looks like they might be back on deck here with something really cool. And I got to say, all the characters they show off from this game, the art style, the style of them, it looks really, really neat. And I think some really positive things. And this is something that, I could see myself playing in this in the future. Probably not in September, but this will be one on my radar for a while. And that's Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. All right. Getting you ready out there in the world, and me as well, for all the game releases in September. This next one, I don't know if there's any more news recently on this, and I think I've talked about this at some point on this show, but I want to make you aware of this game called Orbitals. This one's coming out on September 3rd. It is a Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive, which I was a little bit surprised by that. I don't know if I remember that, but this one's $39.99 USD digitally, and this is I guess from the creators of It Takes Two, or I could be wrong on that. But it's in the vein of one of those games where it's a co-op. It's a puzzle adventure made for co-op. And this one releases on September 3rd. In the back of the box talking this, I'm going to read you. There's a lot about this, but this is seems like a really cool game, especially if you have someone you want to play co-op with. And it seems like it's going to be impressive. So they say, we are one, grab a friend and launch into Orbitals, an intergalactic 2-player co-op adventure set in a wholly new retro anime world. So the style in this one is outrageously cool. Team up as Maki and Omura, 2 inseparable explorers with a whole lot more determination than experience. You'll brave the perils of space in search of help for their crumbling station home, now trapped with a supernatural cosmic storm. Our duo must venture beyond the storm and into the unknown in a desperate bid to save their home. It'll take brains, bravery, and teamwork to make it through. That retro anime feeling. Orbitals captures the warmth and style of classic Japanese anime, brought to life with handcrafted cinematic cutscenes from Studio Masket, full voice acting in English, Japanese, and 6 other languages, and an original soundtrack that channels the magic of that era. So the classic Japanese anime style is striking, and the soundtrack in this is striking so far. So very, elite tier aesthetics to this game from what I've seen. They're also saying it's a puzzle adventure made for co-op, so built from the ground up for asymmetric 2-player co-op, either in local split screen or online with the Nintendo Switch 2 Game Share, which is nice, or using the Orbitals Global Friends Pass. Orbitals rewards smart teamwork and clear communication. Use each character's unique tools to open the path forward, overcome danger, and meet out-of-this-world creatures and characters on a bombastic adventure. I think people should say bombastic a little more. Explore beyond the storm wall, pilot your ship through the perilous asteroid fields, and discover mysterious abandoned stations filled with a variety of puzzles and dangers that only 2 explorers can overcome together. As you navigate uncharted areas, close collaboration is vital. Remember, you can only save your home by working together. So, they're definitely stressing the co-op, the working together, the teamwork aspect here, and that is I think, some people who love co-op games, this is, one of their favorite types of releases. And I'm trying to think, It Takes Two is one. There was another one. I guess it was called something with it was a sci-fi and fantasy. So maybe it was like sci-fan or something like that. It's totally not the name, but I'm sure everyone out there it's kind of ringing a bell of what that game is though. Or fan, I don't remember. I really don't remember. So I got to quit trying to guess. But Orbitals looks really, really cool. I just want to make sure you're aware that's coming out in early September, which will be here before we know it. All right, another game. This one's coming out later in September. There was 18 minutes of gameplay shown for this in the past week. So if you want to see some more gameplay from Silent Hill Townfall, you were able to do so now. So that was kind of the main bit of news there. This is releasing September 24th for PlayStation 5 and Steam. I thought this part was interesting. If you have an Xbox, you're going to have to wait a little bit on this one. It's a timed exclusive over there on PlayStation and Steam. So it's coming to Xbox March 24, 2027. So not the worst thing with the onslaught of all these games coming out in September. Xbox fans just have to wait till next spring to play Silent Hill Townfall. I was surprised this is also not a full price game. This one's $49.99 USD. So, that kind of feels reasonable in these days when games can be $80 out there, which is very, very, very expensive. The back of the box talk on Silent Hill Townfall is Simon Ordell is called back to the island of St. Emilia to put things right, encountering a town lying quiet beneath a heavy fog, seemingly abandoned but not at rest. Venturing deeper and driven to understand his connection to the place and its inhabitants, Simon begins to discover fragments of a past rising to the surface. Preserving the core identity of psychological horror that the series is renowned for, Silent Hill Townfall presents an all-new, self-contained story suitable for those both new to the series and those who have ventured into the fog before. So I think video game developers do a good job of this nowadays, of having their games palatable for new people and also palatable to jump in, at any time. I think they do that. I think they have a good job of having like a mainline series and then doing these offshoots. And I think this is a really smart idea because it can get people to jump to either side of the fence, the mainline series or the offshoots. And if the game's good, it's only going to make people more curious about the other side, even if they don't fully decide to. It's putting the thought in their brain. And I think that's just pretty smart. The developer for this one is Screenburn, and the publisher is Konami. So just another one. If you want to see some gameplay, or if you're just completely enamored and ready for Silent Hill Townfall, you can play it on September 24th. All right, there is another game. We got a 15-minute gameplay trailer shown off. This is another extremely popular, well-selling franchise that was, came on the scene maybe 2 years ago, which was Black Myth Wukong. And the next game from that developer is called Black Myth Zhong Kui. I guess K-U-I. I hope I'm saying that correctly, but my apologies if I'm not. The single-player action RPG based on Chinese mythology. About the game, they're saying, are there truly ghosts in this world? All demons arise from the heart. Monsters blow the stage, immortals above. What a duality of faces. Inside the door, a mess of confusion. Outside, who calls for justice? Sun and moon hang empty in their cycles. Who holds the power of life and death? Neither. Following human sentiment nor the way, seeking no fame nor favor. Draw the sword, yes, draw the sword, to distinguish between the pure and turbid. And that was their back of the box talk in this game. I had to look up. Turbid means like thick, cloudy, or muddy. So I think if you're looking into something turbid, it's probably pretty gross. Black Myth Zhong Kui, the second installment in the Black Myth series developed by Game Science. The game is just in early development, but if you would like to see some of the very difficult combat, which scares me off from some of these games, but I do respect them, Black Myth has their new entry showing off some gameplay. All right, a little game you probably ever heard of out there in the world. Just one of the most popular games of all time, the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Has gotten a new update in the past week, so just want to kind of mention that. This game came out in 2011. One of my favorite games of all time for sure. And this seems just kind of like a little bit of an update, but it's nice to see that some more touches are being given to Skyrim. Today's update to Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Special Edition increases console mod storage limits and brings more creations and improvements and fixes. So an increased mod storage to 15 gigabytes for PlayStation 5 and Xbox, and lots of other updates as well, so check Bethesda's notes for more details. So just a little bit of a quick hitter there on the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. All right, some PlayStation 6 news, and I think this is a no news is good news here, but the Sony CEO, Hiroki Totoki, says the release date of the PlayStation 6 has still not been decided. Totoki said the company still hasn't fixed a date for PS6's launch. So I think this is very smart. I don't think anybody in the world is ready for a PlayStation 6. I don't think they are ready for it based on the PS5 library and the limited amount of exclusives. I don't think people are upset with their hardware performance in any way. I think people can even still play games on PlayStation 4 or even on PlayStation 3. And I think people do play more retro games these days, but there's plenty of other ways to play games than the most brand new things. Not everybody is all the way caring these days about the graphics being incrementally better. And people definitely aren't ready, like I've been saying on the show a few times, to keep paying the ever increasing price of video games. So I think it's a smart move to be holding off on these next consoles. General traditional launch cycles, we would be getting these new consoles next year if it was like a 7-year cycle. But with the memory issues and the RAM and the shortage of those, it's making these things more difficult. And I think a little bit of the people here are kind of, determining some of this stuff too. I think they really can read the tea leaves and say, hey, I don't think people out there in the world are ready for this. They can try to force it down our throat, but do they really want to be selling one of their primary boxes here as a niche item? I don't think so. I think they want these, in households, getting people into their ecosystem, giving people a reason to stick with PlayStation, and, coming out and selling $1,200 consoles next year. I don't think they're going to be seeing the sales figures that they've expected or seen in the past. I think people really are hitting a little bit of a wall here on graphical fidelity, and we're also hitting a wall on, we have options out here in the world. You can play games on your phone. You can play them on a browser. You can stream games now. You can play them on a Nintendo Switch. People are more into retro games. There's third-party handhelds coming out all the time that people are, it's like emulation devices. There's a million different options here to play tons of great games. And I think the next consoles, should really delay themselves more than they're even thinking. I don't think the world's ready for it. I don't think they're ready to manufacture it. I don't think they're ready to have to tell us the price. And I think it's a good thing they're pumping the brakes on some of that stuff. So a little bit of an update there on the PlayStation 6. And then thinking about some more consoles, and this I even think is a good option. This is an expensive price for this thing, but if they're going to, not have the PlayStation 6 for a while, maybe they should give us some more limited edition consoles. That can get some people to want to pick one up on a whim, possibly. It gives people a good entry point if you haven't bought one before. I feel like if you're buying a limited edition, you can maybe feel a little bit better about, dropping that huge chunk of change on it, because you're like, hey, this is something I really, really think is extra cool. It's not the baseline one. It just makes it maybe a little bit more special if you're into it. And the Xbox Series X25 Limited Edition is going to be releasing on November 27th. This one's going to be $899.99, so $900 US. They're saying return to Xbox, which is all capital. Don't ever not capitalize all of Xbox, because then you wouldn't know that they're, all about the gamers. In modern form, introducing the limited edition Xbox Series X25, which I mean, it's a very great little console name for it, in translucent OG green with 1 terabyte of SSD storage. Watch the iconic X light up in green, look inside, witness 25 years of Xbox technology evolved. So the only sad part here is that the Xbox Series X, upon release in 2020, was $500 US. This limited edition, which you could expect to be more than a baseline console, is $900. So I think, like in the real world, or in the world that, most people would be fans of, this console will maybe be $650. So it is more of it's, pushed into more of a niche item, and certainly very, very cool looking. So, just besides the price tag, besides, people might not really need this one at this point in time, but it's an extremely cool looking console. And if you do get one out there, I'll be happy for you, because it looks extremely cool. All right, one more little bit of news here, and this is Xbox related, but Xbox at Gamescom broadcast is taking place next week over 2 days. So I'm sure we're going to get some information out of Gamescom, and we're certainly going to get some Xbox information. They have laid out the next Wednesday, August 26th. They're going to be talking about Minecraft Dungeons 2, Gears of War E-Day, Alien Deathstorm, Tomb Raider Legacy of Atlantis, Mega Man Dual Override, Forza Horizon 6, and maybe some DLC, which I'd be excited for, and Fable. And then Thursday, August 27th, Xbox at Gamescom is going to talk about Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, Dragon's Dogma 2, Dark Arisen, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4, and more. It looks like both of these are going to take place at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, but if you are unable to watch them, I will certainly be talking about them on next week's show with hopefully some exciting updates. So that is everything I got for you for the midsection of the show this week. That's all the video game news and thoughts I have for you. So for the midsection, we talked about the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 2. We talked about 1,000 Time Resist. We talked about the Duskbloods. We talked about Fire Emblem's Fortune Weave. We talked about Orbitals, Silent Hill Townfall, Black Myth Zhong. the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim, the PS6, Xbox Series X25 Limited Edition, and we talked about Xbox at Gamescom broadcast, which is coming in the upcoming week. So that's everything I got for you for the midsection of the show, but there's still one final section left to go. It's usually pretty short and sweet, and even if you aren't into sports, you can stick around. Maybe it's sometimes fun to, hear my ups and downs or my woes about my sports teams, and I should probably have some good ones for you this week. So please come back for the final section after this. Welcome back to the final section of Dep Lewis Show, episode 194. This is the Miscellaneous Talk section where I can talk about anything I want to outside of the video game world. So as always, I want to get into the worldwide world of sports and tell you what's going on with all my favorite teams. And starting off with the NFL, my favorite team, the Carolina Panthers, have completed their third preseason game. It was at Jacksonville on Friday. The result was the Panthers won 34-17, so very nice to see. They put some points up on the board and made a pretty easy win over there against the Jaguars. Kenny Pickett, who's been getting a lot of play in the preseason, was 15 of 25, 137 yards and a touchdown, and I've overall been kind of impressed by Kenny Pickett. Bryce was 5 of 6 for 49 yards. Jimmy Horn Jr. led rushing, which was kind of funny to see, but he had one carry for 39 yards, so he really busted one. It might have been an end around or something like that, but I don't think he's going to be getting the majority of the rushing as our quick slot receiver. But John Mechie III he's wearing number 13. He was the lead receiver with 6 catches for 77 yards. Mike Jackson was the leading tackler with 5 total and 3 solo. Zakee Wheatley, who has been the leading tackler for the first 2 preseason games and is the second leading tackler. So he is seeming very, very impressive over the course of the preseason, and it looks like he's probably playing himself into some good playing time with the Panthers over there. So shout out to Zakee Wheatley. He was second in total tackles with 4 and 3 solo. And then Morig and Isaiah Simmons were right behind that. So, another 2 players I've really been thinking of doing great. Morig has been fun from last season watching, and Isaiah Simmons is a recent signing who has a lot of potential to, go ball out for the Panthers. Chow Smith-Wade, number 26, had a pick. Very nice to see. And Ryan Fitzgerald, I kind of been forgetting to track Mr. Fitzgerald over there, but he was 2 for 3 on field goals and 4 for 4 for extra points. So a very good day over there for the kicking squad. The Panthers will have one more preseason game. That one's going to be this upcoming Friday. So it's going to be in Charlotte versus Houston, Friday, August 28th at 7 p.m. So hopefully the Panthers will make it through the last game healthy and get ready for the regular season, which starts for the Panthers on September 13th at 1 p.m. versus the Bears in Charlotte. So very exciting. I didn't realize they were playing the Bears to start the season. And I think the first game of the season is actually September 9th. It is Seahawks and Patriots, I believe, a rematch of the Super Bowl. So very excited for fantasy football. Have to get my fantasy squad going like I've been saying. And the clock is ticking. All right. Moving on to the NBA. It's off season, so nothing really to report for either one of my favorite teams. I'm a halfway fan of the Charlotte Hornets since I've been a North Carolina resident for the last couple of years, but nothing to report on them. And then the Atlanta Hawks are my favorite team, who I'm still upset with, which I guess I'm going to keep saying that every week, but off season for them as well, so nothing to report on the basketball front. And then moving over to the baseball diamond, my favorite kind of diamond and my favorite kind of sport. The Atlanta Braves, they've been doing a good bit of losing in the last week, and they did some pretty crucial losing, and let's get into it. So last Sunday, the Braves were finishing off a weekend series versus the Diamondbacks in Atlanta, and the Braves won 5-3. And then starting off the week, the Braves were playing up in Minnesota at the Twins. So the Twins got the brooms out and swept the Braves off the porch. The Braves lost 2-4 on Monday. The Braves lost 1-4 on Tuesday, and the Braves lost 4-6 on Wednesday. So very disappointing. Like I was saying, I know a Twins fan now had a bet going on, and I had to rock a Twins hat to a movie the other night. So at least it kind of matched my outfit. It was a cool Twins hat. I've been learning they have some pretty cool merch, but pretty rough out there having to get the broom swept and having to go out there rocking the Twins. At least I was rocking in the movie theater, a little bit dark in there, but some people definitely saw me looking cool in a Twins hat. So bummer there for the Braves, but go Twins. Thursday at the White Sox, the Braves won 2-0. So a little bit of a bounce back there, which was nice to see. That was a makeup of a postponed game, is why the Braves had to not get a break in the past week. And then this weekend, the Braves have been doing some losing up there in Milwaukee against the Brew Crew. The Braves lost 1-2 on Friday night. It was actually Friday afternoon. I believe that was the Chris Sale Mizorowski game. And then Saturday, the Braves actually lost today 1-4. And that one was at 2 p.m. I didn't really get to see any of that game, but hopefully the Braves will be able to bounce back tomorrow night. They are the Sunday night baseball matchup at the Brewers to close out the week. And the next week for the Atlanta Braves, they are off on Monday. They're playing 3 versus the Dodgers after that in Atlanta, and then they're playing 3 versus the Rockies in Atlanta for the entire week. So a whole week of baseball in Atlanta. 3 versus the Dodgers is really tough. I hope the Braves can get 2 of those. And then the Rockies, I hope they can get all 3 of those. So hopefully the Braves will get 5 wins in the upcoming week, and that will make me happy over here as a Braves fan. So what else is going on baseball-wise? Nothing. I'm just kind of hoping the Braves are going to continue this kind of momentum. Last week wasn't the best week in the win-loss column, but they've overall been doing pretty good. They really need to get their players healthy, as always, getting into the postseason, kind of maintain, and that is really just my hope of having the players healthy, especially Ronald Acuna Jr., my favorite player in the universe. All right, so go Braves, and hopefully they can bounce back tomorrow night. So that's everything I got for you for this final section. We talked about all my favorite teams. We talked about the Carolina Panthers, the Charlotte Hornets, the Atlanta Hawks, and the Atlanta Braves. And that's everything I got for you for the final section. And that's everything I got for you for the entire show. So I'd like to reiterate some promotional talk from the beginning. Please follow Dep Lewis Show everywhere. Full episodes of Dep Lewis Show available anywhere you can find a podcast. So find the best place to subscribe and listen weekly. Places like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, YouTube, Amazon Music, and more. If you would like to support the show even further than just listening, Patreon.com/Dep Lewis Show is available if you'd like to subscribe monthly. I'm currently at 1 spot out of 100 taken for the ground floor tier, which is $1 a month and will never change in price and will always include the same content as any of the higher tiers. So Patreon will always be the best place to guarantee you can get the podcast ad-free. It's a great place to just support me if you would like to do so. And the $1 a month is, where I wish you would start if you go look over there. So go check out the ground floor tier. Also, Venmo at Dep Lewis Show is available any day, anytime for any amount if you would like to support the show. And as always, I thank you for listening. I'm always amazed that people are listening to it. I truly appreciate you. And I hope you have a wonderful week out there in the world. I like to say if things are going your way, I hope that continues. And I believe that this week and feel that this week as well. If things are not going your way, I am sorry to hear that and I hope it can change. And I hope it can change very quickly. I hope it can change while you're listening to this podcast would be my hope. And I hope you get to play some fun games in the upcoming week. I'm most likely going to be diving into Pokemon Pokopia more. I'm really excited about that. I want to meet some of my favorite Pokemon, especially Glaceon. I'm sure I can, meet Glaceon pretty early on. But I already got Bulbasaur going. I'm already loving the characters. I'm already liking the building. I'm already liking the customization and the music. And I've been really on a Pokemon kick. So I'm pretty excited to play that. And I'm looking forward to putting some more time in that, along with watching the Braves. And then other than that, I guess we're getting closer. We got one more football game to talk about, and we'll get to the regular season. Maybe in the next week I'll have my fantasy squad to tell you about. But either way, I'll be back next week as always. Thank you for listening to me a bit early this week. I'm going to be having some fun at a party tomorrow. And shout out King Tut, and shout out you, and shout out everybody. So I'll talk to you next week. Have a good one. Thank you for listening to Dep Lewis Show.